let's talk about books.
Yeah.
So fiction can basically be divided into three categories, very broad. There's a lot of bleed over, but we're going to focus on just the three basic categories. That's going to be realistic, science fiction, and fantasy fiction. Realistic fiction is stories about things that could happen, love stories, murder mysteries, things that you could wake up tomorrow and it could be going on. Science fiction is about things that are plausible, things that could happen based on scientific theory and the possibilities we see in the future. Fantasy fiction, that's about the impossible. If there's magic or things that you just know could never be, then that's a fantasy story. I tend to write in the science fiction and fantasy genres. That's what these books are. The very first science fiction story ever written was called Frankenstein. It's considered such because at the time, the regeneration of dead tissue was considered a possibility for the science at that time. And the reason I bring that up is because it's also considered one of the great works of literature of the modern age. Even today, with the prevalence of superheroes in the cinema and on television and The Lord of the Rings being as popular as it is, there is a certain disconnect between people who prefer realistic fiction and the and people who prefer the fantastic stuff. So I want to give a little reading here that I hope will illustrate one of the similarities that all three of these categories share, which is going to be a well-told, well-constructed piece of fiction. This is from my first book, Awakened, and it deals with a character named Erin. Now, Erin she was born rough. She's been abused her entire life, pimped out by her brother. Mother was a drug addict. Basically, it's almost a cliche, her story. But one day she suddenly discovers that she has this amazing ability. That she can look across a room, feel a point in space over there, and mentally pull herself to it, effectively teleport. Cool power, right? Who would want to do that? You never have to walk up a flight of stairs again in your life. So, the scene we're going to pick up with, she has just teleported for the very first time. She has no idea what happened. And she started playing around with it a little bit, and she decided she needs to get back to where she came from, but she doesn't exactly know how to do that. So she starts to sort of blind teleport. And that's where we pick up at this point. Alright, so what was that scene about? Okay, to me as the writer, I can see it going two ways. It was about a girl with a really cool superpower that she's running to explore. Or it was about a woman who has been victimized her entire life, coming to that moment where she realizes that she can fight back. Now, in her case, her ability to fight back was a superpower, which is great. But it just as easily could have been a gun, or just a sudden realization that she doesn't have to be a victim, and that she can stand up to people and not take it anymore. That element, that human common element that anyone can latch onto, that thing that says, yeah, I know what that's like. Somebody used to pick on me, and one day I finally realized I could push back. That element is what is always going to run through a great narrative. Okay? That one thing that a reader can latch onto, empathize with, and learn to care about that character because of it. So it doesn't matter if it's set in a fantasy world, or if it's set in modern day now, or if it's set in some variation thereof. If a good narrative has a real, believable, and empathetic character in it that you can relate to, the rest is just window dressing. And it's all about your personal taste and all that. So the point is, next time you're in the bookstore, next time you're perusing Amazon, whatever, you see a book with a chick in a chainmail bikini with a big sword, or a spaceship, or whatever on the cover, don't assume that it's somehow a lesser work. Because until you open it and read it and see if there's that human element within the narrative, you could be missing out on something great. I'm going to shift gears a little bit, and I'm going to set up my second read, telling you about the other main character in this trilogy. His name is Israel Trent, and he is a Chicago reporter, and he discovered his power at the same time Aaron did. They kind of woke up together in a very weird situation. They didn't know each other. And I'm not going to go too far into what his abilities are, because they don't really come into play so much for this presentation. But I will say that what I'm going to read is from the second book. It's near the beginning, and it's after Israel has discovered his abilities and he's part of this secret world that's hidden from the rest of normal society that has these people, these abilities and things in it. Now, your applause is very gracious and appreciated. However, I chose that passage for a reason. There was a lot of information dumped in there. There was a lot of stuff about the world and the setting, and it all came at you at one time. And I chose that to illustrate another very distinct difference between what we call realistic fiction and any kind of fantastic fiction, and that is the world building. An extra layer of work that comes with writing the fantastic stuff is that you basically have to create your own histories and create your own everything. It always goes back to, it's not this world anymore, so you have it wide open to do whatever you want. And that's something else I want to point out, that if you don't check out this kind of fiction sometimes, you can be missing out on some amazing stuff. I mean, just look at television and things now. Game of Thrones, okay, whole other world. And George R.R. Martin, like, if you look at some of his notes for that setting, he knows how big the planet is, so that he can say, yes, winter lasts for 10 years on this planet because it's just so flippin' big and goes around its sun in such an odd way. So that is, again, an added layer of effort that writers of fantastic fiction have to put into things. So how do you do it? That's a question I get a lot. Kimberly gave me a little too much credit. I wrote these in just over a year, not under a year. Altogether, they're about 282,000 words. Comes out to about 90,000 words a book. How you do that is something we could spend a whole hour talking about. But if you have to boil it down to one thing, I would have to say it's forward momentum. Even if you wrote 200 words a day, at the end of a year, you'd have a 70,000 word novel. Now, by most traditional standards, anywhere between 70 to however long is considered a novel. But there's all kinds of gray, and different people argue about how long you go. But the point is, 200 words is like a couple of paragraphs, maybe a page. You know, if you can commit that much time, 365 days a year, you got a book at the end of the year. Now, I am incredibly fortunate, thanks to this young lady right here, my lovely and talented wife, because I get to stay home and take care of my kids, and while they're at school, I write. So I knock out 2,000 to 3,000 words a day. Not everybody can do that, but the point is not the volume of work. It's that every single day you do a little bit more. You take one more step. You write one more sentence. And the next day you're that much further ahead. And you don't backtrack, and you don't go back to fix what you thought might be wrong or what could go wrong or whatever. You don't do that. You get to those 2 words. Okay? Those 2 words that are at the end of every manuscript. And you do it a little bit every day. You do that enough, you get books. Okay? And hopefully, they're good. But I got news for you. The first draft of anything is shit. Hemingway had it right. Okay? So a lot of times it's not about the writing, it's about the rewriting. But you can't rewrite what you haven't written. You can't edit a blank page. So a little bit every day is going to get you to your goal. I got one more read. This is from the third book. It centers around a character I introduced in the second book, and his name is Justin Wainwright. He goes by the nickname of Bones for some kind of messed up reasons, but you want to know that from the book. So in this particular scene, Israel and all the other guys are in a helicopter. Bones is down on the ground, and some tremendous, horrible thing has happened, and they're going to start talking. A screaming projectile of flesh, power, and total determination that raced through the night sky like the brightest shooting star in history. He streaked towards his target without wavering, without failing. If you want to write, whether it's to sell and make $1 million or just because you've got a story that's got to come out. If you want to get a book into the world, you got to be like Bones. You got to set your eyes on the target, and you got to move towards that target every second, every inch. Keep going, not backtracking, full speed ahead, full momentum until you achieve your goal. It's just that simple, really. I mean, it's hard. It takes a lot of discipline. It takes sacrifice. But it can be done. And then if you focus, and you keep that forward momentum, and you do a little bit every day, you can get to those 2 words that should be your target. The end. Thank you.